came to realize that there are no such things as evil people in this world. Only damaged people embrace our humanity.
In 2013, 15-year-old Daniel Marsh broke into an elderly couple's home and brutally murdered them. It was one of the most brutal murders committed by a teenager. After 6 years of being convicted for his crime, he did a TED Talk called Embracing Our Humanity. In this talk, he revisited his crime and explained how, from his personal experience, people like him can change in prison and why they deserved redemption. Has he truly been rehabilitated and deserves redemption? To get close to an answer to this question, we first have to know the whole story. Born on May 14, 1997, Daniel Marsh had a rocky childhood. His parents didn't get along well. According to his mother's testimony, they began experiencing trouble in their relationship right around the time the kids were born. She described her husband as having a short temper and being quick to resort to screaming and yelling. He would often have angry outbursts and called her all kinds of horrible names. It got to the point that Daniel and his older sister would get tense and grow quieter around their own father. The couple tried to save their marriage by going to a family counselor, but the counselor later informed Daniel's mother that her husband was unwilling to change. This led to their separation in 2008 when Marsh was 10 years old. Shortly after the separation, Daniel's mother started an affair with a woman, and not just any woman. It was Daniel's former kindergarten teacher. This signaled the end of his parents' marriage and started their divorce proceeding. It was also the same year that Marsh started to have homicidal thoughts toward his mother's partner. He was angry at his mother for abandoning their family, and even more mad at his kindergarten teacher for ruining their family. He would imagine multiple ways of killing and torturing the woman who used to be his kindergarten teacher.
I never thought about and plotted about killing the woman that my mother left my father. What was your plan? Slit her throat.
2008 was an eventful year for Daniel Marsh. It was on this year that his name made it into the local headlines. When he was with his father in a car, his father suddenly felt pain in his chest. Daniel's father had a heart attack while driving, his foot still pressed on the accelerator. The 10-year-old acted fast. He grabbed the steering wheel and turned it to an empty sidewalk. The car went through the sidewalk and crashed into a brick wall. The crash didn't cause them major injuries, but Daniel's father was still unconscious from the heart attack. Daniel then performed CPR on his father and managed to save his father's life. He was awarded the American Red Cross Heroes Award for this. He was hailed as a hero by the local news stations.
All of a sudden he passed out and sort of flew back into his seat. I grabbed onto the steering wheel and directed it off to the side of the road, started pounding on his chest, and after about 30 seconds he came back.
Little did they know that this 10-year-old hero was having murderous fantasies. The homicidal fantasy started with Daniel's kindergarten teacher as the target, but they soon evolved to murderous fantasies about everyone he met. At age 11, he actually told a therapist about his fantasies of torturing and killing people. When asked whether he would make those fantasies a reality, he replied that he was fully capable of making them a reality. He was diagnosed with adjustment disorder with depressed mood. In short, he was having unhealthy and excessive responses to stressful events in his life. The stressful event was probably his parents' separation. As Daniel entered his teenage years, he began using alcohol and marijuana. He would become more irritable and there would be more angry outbursts due to his substance abuse. He went back and forth between his parents' home until he was 14, at which point his father threw him out because of his constant drinking and smoking. Meanwhile, Daniel's mother was still oblivious to his substance abuse. He got to the point of becoming anorexic. He was then placed in an intensive outpatient program to treat the condition. He was treated for a month and was determined to have psychotic episodes while in treatment. As time passed, Daniel's violent thoughts increased. His dreams about killing people, which had begun at age 10, became more frequent. In December 2012, when he was 15, Daniel even told his school counselor about his homicidal fantasies. The counselor called the police on him. Daniel was then involuntarily hospitalized because he was judged to be a danger to himself and others. He was released after a couple of weeks with new medications. In January 2013, he told his school psychologist again about the murderous fantasies he had regarding his school peers. When asked if he would act on them, he stated, "I have full confidence that I could hurt these people." A police officer was brought to school again, but it was determined this time that Daniel posed no danger to himself or others, and no further action was taken. Soon after, Daniel had another meeting with a school counselor. This time he described graphically how he wanted to torture people by peeling skin from their hands and cutting off their eyelids. He added that these graphic fantasies only scratched the surface of his thoughts, and that he had given up on fighting them. His statements were not informed to authorities because there was believed to be no intent of identified victims. It was a weird situation. He was judged as a danger to himself and society just 1 month before, but now he's judged as harmless, when his description of his violent fantasies actually became more brutal and graphic. Was this his last cry for help from the adults around him after his previous cries for help were dismissed? Was he a victim of the failed system? Or was he just a budding psychopathic killer with no chance at redemption? After all, he scored 35.8 out of 40 on the psychopathy checklist. Or was it something in between? Only Daniel knows the full answer, but this doesn't change the fact of the brutal crime he would commit later. His homicidal fantasies continue. Whenever he looked at a person, he thought about how he would kill them.
So, how would you kill me? There's a lot of ways. Beating you to death with your tie. Okay. Beating your face into the mirror until it broke and using the glass to cut your arteries, gouging your eyes out, and just smashing your face into the wall. It's nothing personal.
Imagine having someone think of killing you brutally while meeting them. When he said that he had given up on fighting his fantasies, he meant it. He started to talk more persistently with friends about torturing and killing random people. He started drawing violent pictures that depicted torture and killings with morbid details on the methods in art class. He talked to his friends about how he would really kill people and claim insanity if he were caught. He also made a detailed written plan to kill his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. Yes, the murderous boy actually had a girlfriend and a group of friends that shared his interest. For the others, it might just be a teenager rebellious phase. But for Daniel Marsh, the interest was real. They started taking interest in a gore porn website beginning in 2012. Daniel also began idolizing the likes of Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, the most brutal serial killers in history. He also engaged in animal cruelty, just like how most serial killers started. He would set fires on animals and kill them. According to one friend, Daniel once strangled a cat in the street. When the friend asked why he strangled the cat, Daniel replied, "Well, I just wanted to do it. I just hated that cat." He also asked the friend if he could kill his dog. He also killed a raccoon. But killing animals didn't relieve him of his fantasies. On the night of April 13, 2013, he decided that it was enough. He couldn't and wouldn't suppress his urges anymore. The 15-year-old Daniel Marsh decided to make his fantasies a reality. He planned the murders extensively. He taped the bottom of his shoes and wore gloves so that he would not leave behind footprints, fingerprints, or DNA. He wore all black clothing and black face mask and armed himself with a 6-inch buck knife. On April 14, between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., he left his mother's house, fully intent on committing his first murder. His preparation was complete. The only thing left was to find his target. Yes, you heard it right. He prepared for murder without a target in mind. For him, it's all the same. Everyone was a target. He started to roam the streets of Davis, California, searching for a home with open doors or windows. According to his later confession, he checked between 40 and 50 homes for open windows or doors. He finally found an open window at Claudia Maupin and Oliver Chip Northup Jr.'s home. Marpin and Northup were an elderly couple living by themselves, just 2 doors down from Daniel's father's residence. Northup was 87 years old at that time, while Marpin was 76.
When was the first time you started thinking about killing these people down the street?
I didn't.
Did you start thinking about it?
That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do it. I lost control.
Daniel sliced open the window screen, climbed through the open window, and waited in the living room until he heard snoring sounds coming from the master bedroom. He followed the snoring sounds to the bedroom, where he found Marpin and Northup asleep. He stood over the couple's bed for about 10 minutes and watched them sleep, while deciding how he would kill them. He described how he was feeling nervous, but also excited and exhilarated as he did this. Claudia Marpin then woke up, saw Daniel, and began screaming. Marsh then stabbed her in the torso. As she was being stabbed to death, she screamed for help and begged him to stop. Her cries for help only served as motivation for Daniel to attack her more. He recalled that the old lady just would not die. When Northup woke up, Daniel stabbed him until he knew he was dead. He continued stabbing the couple even after they were dead because it just felt right. According to him, Marpin suffered 74 wounds around her body, including 67 stab wounds. One particular stab wound knocked out her tooth. Northup suffered 65 separate wounds ranging from his head to his legs. 61 of those were stab wounds. He stabbed both of his victims a total of 128 times. After murdering them, he started mutilating and dissecting their bodies. He cut the victims' organs open and examined and experimented on them. He disemboweled them, removing their organs from their bodies. He tried to take out Claudia Marpin's eye, but found this to be too difficult. He pulled fat out of her leg and torso and cut open Northup Jr.'s forehead out of curiosity. He also inserted a cell phone into Marpin's abdomen and a drinking glass into Northup's abdomen, which he later claimed he did to fuck with the investigators. According to him, committing the murders gave him the most enjoyable feeling he had ever experienced. He described the feeling as better than sex, and it lingered for weeks. In fact, he even became Student of the Month at his school after this double homicide, only to be expelled a couple of weeks later for bringing a knife to school. He planned to commit more murders. He wandered the streets carrying a baseball bat, looking for his next victims, but could not find any. He planned on murdering his next victims with a bat, so the police could not make the connection with the double homicide of Marpin and Northup. The couple's bodies were found that night. On the morning after the murder, the couple was absent from church. Northup also failed to show up for a gig with his local folk band. One of their daughters tried calling them, but received no answer. Their son and one of their grandsons then visited their home, but then left after no one answered the door, believing they were out of town. It wasn't until that evening that another daughter who was worried visited their home with the police. They found the slashed window screen around the back and saw blood stains. They forced entry and found the gruesome scene in the master bedroom. Investigators, including 25 FBI agents, tried to solve the murders. However, Daniel Marsh had planned the murders perfectly. He left no evidence at the scene. The investigation was a dead end. He would get caught because as a teenager he couldn't help but brag to his friends. He bragged to a close friend that he had committed the murders. He would then brag to other friends, including his girlfriend, describing the details of the murders. At first they didn't believe him, but after he showed them the knife and other items he used in the murders, they believed him but did not know how to respond. They were afraid to report this to anyone else. They eventually informed the school that Daniel was carrying a knife around campus, which resulted in his suspension. His girlfriend broke up with him on June 4 because she felt intimidated by him. A week later, Marsh sneaked into her house, which made her fear for her life. She told Daniel's close friend about this. The friend told Daniel's father, but his father didn't believe the friend. He then called 911 and told them about the murders.
This place emergency.
Can this be anonymous?
What are you reporting?
Double homicide that happened at April.
You're reporting that, or you have information regarding that?
I have information regarding that.
What are you calling to report, sir?
The double homicide that happened in April this year.
What can you tell me about that?
Everything, actually. Daniel Marsh.
Daniel Marsh?
Yeah, Daniel Marsh or Dan Marsh. He cut up in the stomach of both the people, and he put a phone in the woman and a cup in the guy. The reason why I want to remain anonymous is because if my mom finds out, she will send me to the military school.
On June 17, 2013, Daniel Marsh was brought in for questioning. At first, he denied involvement in the murders. Finally, after 3.5 hours of questioning, he began to confess. He described the murders in details and told them where they can find the murder weapon and the clothes he wore that night. They found all the evidence in his mother's garage.
Hi, you must be Daniel? Yeah, that's Chris. Yeah, nice to meet you. What do you know, Dan?
I just know that somebody broke into this old couple's house and killed them. That one kid, there's always that one outcast.
But why are you ruining my life? Why should I? I'm not ruining your life. I'm trying to solve a homicide, a double homicide. If you do it, I understand, and I am there for you to try to make other people understand, because I see it. I need help. Okay. That's the first step.
If you want to help me, then don't ruin my life. Anything, send me to the psychiatric hospital. Every time I look at someone, in my mind, I see flashes of images of me killing them. I'm not gonna lie, it felt amazing. The most exhilarating, enjoyable feeling I've ever felt. It was pure happiness and adrenaline and dopamine, just all of it rushing over me.
He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. He first pleaded not guilty and later changed his plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. His lawyer had him examined by a psychiatrist. When they met, he threatened to kill the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist found him to be mentally ill but sane. Despite being a juvenile, he was tried as an adult due to the brutality of his crime and his special condition. On September 26, 2014, he was found guilty on both counts of first-degree murder, and on September 30, 2014, he was found sane when he committed the murders. But there's a catch. Although he was tried as an adult, his juvenile status made him ineligible for the death penalty and life in prison without parole. He was sentenced to 52 years to life in prison with parole eligibility after 52 years. He would effectively have spent all of his life in prison. But there's another catch. A change to California law for juvenile offenders in 2013 would allow him to be paroled after serving 25 years, when he is 42. So, if he displayed remorse and displayed good behavior, Daniel Marsh, who had the urges to kill everyone he met, can be released in 2039. Many people believe his TED Talk and his remorseful appearance were just other facades displayed by a sociopath to prepare for his parole hearing in the future. What about you? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.